Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode on the challenges and triumph of online teaching during COVID-19. I am looking at the first phase because I am aware that some educators have gone back, have started last week, back online platform. But I'm looking at educators who have been teaching in the first phase of the lockdown, when we actually first came into lockdown. So I'm looking at the experience, the first phase. I'll be coming back for the next phase after. Right, so basically, when we actually first started on the online platform, during COVID-19 at the Female Educators Roundtable with your host, Debby Enoe from Teacher Success Coach, and another one of my guests from around the world. As you all know that I am looking at what it's been like teaching during COVID-19, not this phase of the teaching this semester. I'm looking at the very first time when we actually came into the virus situation, how education actually went online. It was like a scramble going online to teach the students. So I'll be coming back after September to look at the second phase, how we've actually negotiated the platform with the knowledge we knew from the very first phase. So I'm still on the first phase of people have actually taught during the first semester. Right, and as you all know that I'm looking at educators from around the world. So my educators are not from only the UK, because I'm from the UK. I've had educators from everywhere. Any educator who wants to speak to me from whatever country, they're welcome to come and speak to me so we can actually share our experiences of what it was really like teaching on the online platform during the period of COVID-19. Now, when we go back, we've got some more experience to bring onto the platform because we have negotiated some of the challenges. We know what didn't work and we know what worked. So therefore, when we go back now, some who've gone back last week, they now know what to do because they've had the experience. And when I go back in September, I've had the experience also because I've taught online, so I know what works, what doesn't work. So we are looking at what it was like when we first came onto the online platform and how we struggled, how we didn't know anything, and how we had to use YouTube as our, tutorial to actually guide us as to how to use the platform. Right. So welcome to my guests from around the world. She's going to introduce herself. She's going to tell us what country she came from. She's also going to tell us, the age of the children she taught and how it was for her teaching on the online platform. Welcome. Thanks for accepting the offer for coming online. I really do appreciate that because as I started discovering, not all educators like to speak on camera. As much as we speak in the classroom, I discovered that educators are camera shy, which is interesting. So thank you very much for accepting the offer and coming on. Please introduce yourself and tell us the country you come from and what you teach, etc.
Okay, thank you for having me. My name is Rachel. I teach computer science to 12-year-olds through 18-year-olds, and I'm in Los Angeles, California.
Thank you. 12 to 18 years old. So you have the 12 to the, the 12 to the 16, those are the puberty times changing. So the behavior and the attitude, whoa. So you have all of that. So you have all of it from 12 to 18. What is it like? What is it like?
It's always interesting. A lot of focus issues in that group, just because they do get distracted easily, but there's good points and bad points.
Yeah, I could well imagine because I also have a teenager now, and I forgot what it was like, dealing with my, my older two. This one I'm thinking, oh boy, challenging. Anyway, you have been doing the online platform. And what was it like in terms of engagement? Do you teach mixed group of students?
It depends on the class. So sometimes I will teach different grade levels, but most of the time it's just one.
Okay. So you teach both boys and girls so you teach mixed class, boys and girls as well? In one
Yeah,
class, you
boys
have boys
and
and
girls.
girls. So,
Mhm.
okay. So what was it like, trying to engage them, especially that age group, and trying to keep their attention on the online? What was it all about? Tell us what it's about.
So it's a little different for the different age groups. For the younger kids, I try to engage them with games and a lot of sharing activities. So where they have to speak out loud a lot, just so that I know they're paying attention. With the older
Mm,
kids, they're more distracted, I think, by what they're looking at on their screen. Like I can often see them, switching over tabs or kind of just like zoning out. So with them, I try to give them more projects where they just have to explain it along the way.
mm, 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 mm. So what subject you teach them that, you use these different techniques?
Well, I do teach multiple subjects. So in computer science, it's a little easier to rely on online just because they're already on the computer. But things like
Mm,
math or English, I have to kind of redo the curriculum and make it so it's more
mm,
based on them speaking to me instead of them writing,
mm,
since, they can't obviously hand in their math homework easily.
mm. So because you said that you seen them switching tabs, so it means that you did not, the camera was not on.
Their camera is on, but I mean, I can just tell by what they're looking at. Like sometimes they'll just start laughing, or a lot of them have two monitors, so you can kind of see them looking at the other one, things like that.
All right. So you had some student that had two monitors, so which means sometimes you were in trouble because if they had two monitors, you're actually losing their attention sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So you have to kind of check in with them a lot more just because, yeah, the odds are they probably are getting distracted versus like in person when you can, see their computer.
Right. So how much was that a distraction for you?
It's gotten better, but yeah, in the beginning it was quite a distraction. Especially with computer science students, just because they are so tech savvy. So they play a lot of games. They're, on online forums like Discord. Sometimes you can hear like the beeping or alerts. So it took a while to get them to focus and learn how to engage them so much that they didn't really have time for that.
Okay. So what did you do when you noticed that they were on a different platform?
Well, of course, I just asked them to switch out of it. Have them screen share pretty often just to
Oh,
see, yeah, just to avoid it. So I can see what tabs they have open, or just to make sure that they are looking at the screen that I'm sent them, the screen that I sent them
okay.
to work on.
Okay. Oh, so how many in the physical classroom, how many students would you normally have in one class?
Classes are different sizes, but I'm lucky enough to usually only have around 10.
10 in your class.
Yeah,
Wow. Is it a private school?
yes.
Okay. That explains it. It's a private school. Okay, so you have 10. Right. So how many students did you have on the online platform?
The same, up to 10. Yeah,
Okay, right. Yeah. Because it's private, there's a different setup, isn't it? Because
yeah,
it's private, so therefore, the same amount you had in the physical classroom, therefore you have the same amount in situation like that as well. So what was the behavior like in terms of, the engagement was a challenge. You have to, you always have to be ahead of them. But what was the behavior like?
kind of,
Did you have
again,
any behavior
depends on
issue? The
the
fact that they're from private school. Sorry?
behavior issues, yeah, mostly just them getting distracted. Sometimes too much posting in the chat. Like students will send, videos and other distracting things. So kind of have to monitor that and make sure that they're not, sending around distracting videos and that they are paying attention.
Okay, so which means you're saying that they used to just get, find a video from wherever and just send it in the chat, which had nothing to do with the lesson.
Yeah, exactly. Or they'll just start playing sound from their computer, which is quite loud. And, you have to kind of make sure that you can mute them or ask them to turn it off, things like that.
Okay, so were you in control of the muting though? Were you, because I know there's some on Zoom, you're in control of, you could actually mute everybody.
Yeah. So
Okay,
have to use that
okay.
feature often.
Okay. For me, one of the blessed thing was having the control of that mute button. So when they're doing too much talking or they're not listening, you could just mute them, right? So that was a plus, where you cannot do that in the physical classroom.
Right, exactly.
So in terms of the community, how did you form a community on the online platform?
Well, we try to have student groups. So students go into like a different Zoom room and like do their homework together or talk or things like that. So that was their main social interaction.
Okay, so was that working? How did that work? Do you think that was a useful thing that you use in terms of, Zoom group and getting them to do their homework together? How did it work for you?
I think it was okay. I mean, of course, it's a little harder to get people to show up just because it's not mandatory. So, you have to kind of encourage them to go. But I think it was successful to an extent.
Okay. So did the student enjoy? Did you have a lot of them turning up in this individual Zoom room? Or what I find was when something is not compulsory, the student find an excuse to escape.
Right. Yeah, different days would be different amounts. Sometimes we'd have really low days where there'd only be like, 3 or 4 kids, sometimes bigger days where there was like 10 or 15. So kind of just depends on the time maybe.
Okay. So how many hours did you teach online and what time?
I teach 8:30 to 5:30. So
Oh,
yeah, just because the classes are
8:30 to
small.
5:30 every day.
Yeah.
That's why the classes have to be small.
Yeah,
8:30 to
exactly.
5:30 every day.
Yeah.
And how many hours? So you had the student online for all this time?
Yeah, I mean different students for each class, but yeah, students, yeah, the whole time except for lunch.
Wow. So which means that you have a different group of students, but throughout the day, the students all had lessons from 8:30 to 5 o'clock, every student.
Not every student, we try to break them into groups. So some of them have classes like in the morning, and some of them have classes in the afternoon or for longer in the afternoon. It depends what they're taking, but yeah, we try to split them up so they're not there all day. But the teachers are there all day.
Right. So the student, sorry?
The students don't stay for the whole time, but the teachers stay for the whole time. So they only take their regular amount of classes. They just start at different times.
Okay, so let's say a student might have from 8:30 until 1 o'clock, and another group have from 1 o'clock until 5 o'clock, right?
Right, so they're broken up.
Okay, but you as the educator, you're there from 8:30 until 5.
Yeah.
So do you have any break, any free period at all except for lunch?
No, we don't have any prep periods. We can plan before or after class, and we get like time for it, like specified time in our schedule.
So the specified time is after 5 o'clock.
Yeah, so whenever you don't have a class.
Wow, that's kind of steep, because it means that you are looking at a computer screen for all these hours. Your only time away from the computer screen is at lunchtime.
Yeah, so it does get a little tiring just being on there all day. Yeah, definitely an adjustment from being able to, be in the classroom and not rely on the computer so much.
So when you're in the physical classroom, your lesson is normally from 8:30 until 5 o'clock, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a long day for a school.
Yeah.
It's really long. So when you're in the physical classroom, you'll have the same group of students, or you move around as the teacher, you move to different classes.
You don't move as the teacher, the students just come to different classes.
Oh, the student come. Okay. So which means you teach all that's the reason why you say that you teach from 12 to 18. So which means, let's say whatever subject you teach in, the student just come to the classroom. So it filled up your day until 5 o'clock. Okay. So how did you assess them online? What was it like and how?
Yeah, it depends on the subject. It was definitely harder to assess them online just because giving like regular tests, it was really prone to, like them being able to look up the answers online and stuff like that. So specifically for computer science, I make them share their screen and write the code like in front of me. And then I also make them comment their code. So they have to explain what every line does, just so I know that they know. And then for math, I'll actually use the Zoom whiteboard, and then I'll write the problems and I'll have them like explain it to me, or I'll have them like record them, or well, it depends on if they have access to a camera, but sometimes I'll have them record them like doing the test so I can see them doing it. Yeah, a lot of things just kind of switched into questions that are, yeah, just done orally just to avoid, yeah, cheating and other like printing out the answers, things like that.
Okay. I like the example of getting them to record themselves doing the assessment. That's a good one. I never thought of that because it means that you at least seeing they're doing it rather than, parents supporting them. So what was the situation like in terms of, did you have any parents when you're teaching the children online, the parents are being there? Have you seen any parents that was, hanging around?
Not hanging around for the whole class, but I would see or hear parents like in the background. So they were in the same room, or they would come in and like give their kids like food, things like that, or ask them questions. So there was some parent interaction.
Okay. So in terms of helping, so when you give the children the assessment, were there any parents trying to help the child to do the assessment?
No, I didn't have any of that, luckily.
Okay, you had some very disciplined parents then. They were very disciplined.
Yeah, maybe because the kids are older.
That's true. Also, probably it's because it's also a private school as well, because they're paying for this education, so they also need to know that the child get the education because further along in terms of testing. So that could be all these reasons as well. That's in terms of that. So in terms of your lesson plan in the physical classroom, how much was your lesson plan changed, or how much did you have to change your lesson plan to actually teach that same subject online? How was that?
That was probably one of the hardest parts with subjects, especially like science. It was really difficult to convert like labs where you needed physical things, or we'd have to go, to school and grab a lot of supplies and then bring it back and try to, demo it on screen, or you'd have to try to find like programs that could recreate it. Same thing with like economics. you got to make sure all your charts are, you know, scanned into the computer, or we have electronic versions for them to draw on, things like that. So that was probably one of the most difficult parts. It definitely took several weeks of converting like all the stuff and getting it all scanned in and finding alternatives.
Mm, 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 mm. So the other thing is, in terms of you having to teach online and have to do all of that, how did you get support from your school in terms of training you on the online platform?
A bit. We were actually trained on Zoom, just how to, you know, turn it on, and well, it already records for our school, so that we didn't have to worry about, but how to screen share, how to kind of mute everyone. It was kind of just like a quick guideline though. And then as far as resources go though, there wasn't any training on that. It was kind of just everybody figuring out what subjects could do what. As teachers, we tried to talk to each other, like collab and see what other people were doing, but there wasn't like a specific like set of stuff given from the school or anything like that.
Yeah, but you were still fortunate than some other educators because you know that showed you all basic guideline how to switch off, how to mute student, etc. Some educators had nothing. It's like we're going live on Monday, we break up Friday, we're going live on Monday. So it's a situation where you had to find a way to understand how to work the platform. You know, there are different level of support in terms of understanding the platform from different schools. Another thing is nobody knew what to do.
Right. Yeah, no, I definitely think some schools had a lot of struggles from what I heard from my other friends. They're kind of just like thrown into it. So definitely think that's a big issue. And yeah, definitely hope those schools made it work for them.
Yeah. Thank you. In terms of teacher-student relationship, how was that? Do you think that it became stronger, it became weaker, it remains the same? What's the situation with you and your student in terms of the online platform? What was that like?
I think we're fortunate enough to be pretty close to our students, but I do think it weakened a little bit. One of the biggest things is the fact that all the classes are recorded. I think that makes kids like pretty uncomfortable because right when they come into class, it's like, you know, this session is being recorded. So it makes them kind of be a little less open or be a little more shy with each other or with us. So that I think unfortunately did suffer a little bit.
But did it get any better as you know, initially, yes, but as you progress onto the online platform, did it get any better?
In some ways it did, especially for some of my more like elective based classes. We had like game making and things like that. So the kids were able to get used to online, and yeah, they'd use the chat a lot and exchange like, you know, video game tags and things like that. So in that way they were kind of getting closer, but yeah, still overall it's, you know, more social in the classroom.
Right. So what would you say worked better in terms of connection? Do you feel that social interaction regarding the physical classroom was much more effective than the online platform, or was it?
Yeah, I would say physical interaction is better, but I mean, it can be done online with like group projects and things like that.
So how was your relationship, or how is the relationship with you and the parents, parent-teacher partnership? How was that, or how is that?
A lot of the parents, we usually just communicate through email, so I guess it's decent. I don't often have too many interactions with a lot of the parents. With some students, I do if I have them for several classes, or if I have to talk to their parents more often. But for most of the parents, it's just a lot of brief emails, like, oh, like, this is how your student is doing, this is their progress. So pretty basic.
Okay. So on the online, how was it when you were doing it online? How was that relationship?
It
Do you
was
find
pretty
it
much
was
the
more?
same.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, still just mostly emails. I would, yeah, again, sometimes see parents, but pretty rarely. So
Okay. Why do you think that is so?
it could be a lot of the parents are maybe working at the same time, like in other rooms, I think is a big thing. Since my students are older, I feel like most of them are just in their rooms or like offices kind of thing. So I assume like their parents just kind of give them more independence.
Mm, 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 mm. That's interesting. Do you feel that if you had more interaction with the parents, that the student would be behavior or the children attention would be different?
Yeah, probably. I think if their parents were in the room, it'd be a lot harder for them to be like switching tabs and things like that, or getting distracted by their siblings, like other various environment issues.
Mm, mm, mm. Did you actually mention to the parents that, well, little Peter have not been very attentive because he's been distracted? Have you mentioned any of that to the parents at all? Or do you think
Yeah,
it would
with
have helped?
I have with certain students, like if it's getting kind of out of hand, like I'd have a student where his siblings would be doing like music practice in the same room, so that was super distracting.
Oh,
So I kind of had to tell their parents if they could maybe switch the time or put them in a different room. So yeah, I would speak out if there were issues like that.
and did it, so which means that the parents did listen and it did change the whole thing after a while, right?
Yeah, most of them did. Some of them, like I said, they do work, so it might be harder for them to notice. But I think they tried.
Okay, 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 okay. Right. Another thing in terms of with you now, in terms of self-care, because you seem to be on that platform from 8:30 until 5 o'clock. So what did you do in terms of self-care for yourself? What did you do in terms of to ensure that you didn't become stressed or you relax more? What did you do?
For me, yeah, I try to just be very separated at lunch, so like move away from my computer, um, not like look at any of the alerts until like right before class. And then after work, I would try to just do like exercise and then shower and just kind of be peaceful for at least a few hours,
Mm.
like before I'd have to plan for classes. So yeah, just try to take like breaks in between the day.
Okay, okay. Yeah, but how did you, because if you're on the platform from 8:30 to 12 or 1, okay, so you give the students, so how long was a lesson? For one lesson, how
Um,
long did you keep them?
it's 50 minutes.
15 minutes.
50.
50 minutes.
Yeah.
So in the 50 minutes, did you break it up in small chunks? How did you give us an example of a 50 minutes lesson?
I usually don't break up their classes into chunks. So usually they start with some kind of like warm up, and then we'll go through that. And then I'll explain whatever lesson for whatever class. And then they'll usually have time to work on it. And then we'll go through correcting it. And then we'll go over the homework. And that would usually take the whole time. And then since it was 50 minutes, we have, 10 minutes before the next class starts. So I do have those breaks in between. So we have 10 minutes to transition to the next class.
Okay, okay, okay. Okay, so you have 10 minutes transition time, but the plus is because it's online, the 10 minutes is quite nice because whereas in the physical classroom, it means 10 minutes for one group of students to leave your class for another group to come in, isn't it? Okay,
Yeah,
so with
exactly.
that 10 minutes, what do you do with the 10 minutes in terms of for you?
For me, I like to drink like water or tea and then maybe listen to like a song or two just to kind of be more relaxed, and then I'll start my next class.
Right. And then, yeah, but 10 minutes is so short. The time you turn around, you know, it's time for your next class to be online waiting for you. That's a heavy day. That's a real heavy day. So how many different classes do you have in the day?
8.
You have 8 classes.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a lot of classes. So when you finish, you're exhausted. You are exhausted.
Yes, definitely draining. But it is like a low amount of students, so it's a little better than some of the other teachers that I've seen that have, like 30 kids for 6 hours.
That's very true. The plus for you is you have smaller classes. So the maximum number of students you might have is 15, right?
Yeah.
Right. So which means that your class range from 10 to 15. That's pretty good. Pretty good. But you see, the challenge is the length of the day from 8:30 to 5. That's a tall order. That's quite, that's quite heavy. So do you find that because the lesson is long, do you find that the students become more distractive, or is it the same as when they were in the physical classroom? What difference in terms of their attention span and their engagement in terms of the physical classroom and the online classroom?
I don't think it's because the lesson's long per se. I think it's just because they're at home and they feel really comfortable, so it's easy for them to get distracted. Like I said, like a lot of like background noises, and they just have like all their stuff with them and like their siblings. So I think that's the most distracting part. Also like their phones, it's hard to tell them to put them away if it's, online versus in class.
Mm-hmm. So which means that at home, a lot of them had their phone and, they were distracted with the phone because they've never had that before, right? Because in the physical classroom, they're not allowed a phone, right?
Yeah, they have to leave it in their bags.
Right. So therefore, for them, it's a new thing because you have no control. You over there and they're here. So
Right.
there's nothing you could tell them. So when you tell them put the phone away, do they really do it? You know.
Yeah, exactly. Some of them might, but usually not.
Okay, okay. Another thing is, did you tell the students the expectation on the platform? In the physical classroom, I do ground rules, which we write the ground rules together, so they know what is expected. So when they came to the physical classroom, the same thing applied. So how did you implement your ground rules or your expectation? What do you call it? Ground rules, expectation?
Yeah, so rules or classroom rules. Um,
Okay.
I pretty much just said that it should be the same as the regular classroom, like in terms of them, not being on their phones, paying attention, being on the lesson.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Again, though, I know it's a struggle because, now they have access to all these things and no one's really there to like walk around and like see them. But yeah, I just kind of explained it that it would be the same as physical classroom.
Mm-hmm. And as you say, some students took notice and others didn't. So the others that didn't, what sanction, what punishment did you have for them? Did you have any punishment? What could you do if you say to them, put the phone away and then I'm putting it away? What do you do?
Usually I'll just have to email their parents, so I just remind the students, I'm like, if we keep having this problem, we will email your parents. And since the classes are recorded, we can actually send the parents the video, so kind of have
Okay.
proof that they aren't paying attention. So yeah, I mean, I don't
Okay.
like to do that, of course, but we can if we need to.
Okay, okay. So when you say to, well, I know that sometimes when I say to some parents, some students that do not let me have to contact home because you know what's going to be, what is going to be.
Right.
And they say, oh no, miss, you don't need to do that. So what was the students' attitude when you said to some of them, okay, if you continue, I'll have to phone home or I'll have to, email home. So what are they saying?
Similar to what you just said, they're usually like, oh no, don't do that. Like we don't have to do that. So
Okay.
yeah, it usually works.
Okay, usually, yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, you see, I have that with more younger children or children whose parents is on the ball. Parents who, there's some parents, you could rely on, they're going to take it up. But I also have some parents, I remember saying to a child, oh, I'm going to tell your parent, oh, well, they don't care. It doesn't matter if you tell them, it doesn't make a difference. They're not going to do anything. So therefore, I'm stuck because there's nothing I could do because your parents is not going to support you.
Yeah, that definitely happens as well, especially with like tardiness. There are just some students who are like, yeah, you can tell my parents. So, and I do, and their parents maybe try to help, but I'm not sure if it's too effective at times. Like some students still continuously are late, things like that.
Okay, so you had lateness.
Yes.
Okay. So you had them coming in late. You had all sorts of behavior issue. You had them coming late. You had them actually being distracted by using using the phone and all of that. Did you have any of them that stayed in the bed and just doing the Zoom from the bed?
I did. I think the school though did send an email about them not doing that. So that
Okay.
reduced it a little bit, but I do still have students that do that. But we try to
Okay.
tell them to use a desk or sit at a table.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. So what was it like in terms of, did they all turn the camera on? How were you in terms of them having the camera on, in terms of you having your camera on? How was that?
So we're supposed to have our cameras on the whole time as the teacher. The students are also supposed to have their cameras on. They will turn them off at times. We usually just have to ask them to turn it back on. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But yeah, ideally they should all have them on the whole time.
Okay.
But I mean, again, we don't know what's going on in like the background of their house, so maybe they're turning it off for like a valid reason.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So is it one of the school policy that the camera must be on?
Yeah.
Okay, okay. That's interesting because some schools, the policies, they're not allowed to see the students because of safeguarding issue. In some schools that it is important that they see the student because they need to know who is behind the camera.
Right.
So it varies. How would you rate the online platform? Would you say it was a good thing for you or you hated it? How would you summarize the online platform?
I'm pretty neutral about it. I would say it's probably like a 5 or a 6 out of 10. I mean, it's definitely not ideal, but it can work enough to make it work. I still think the students are learning. Again, though not ideal. It's harder to engage them in my experience. So I do think over time it's getting better, like more resources that I'm finding out from other teachers, things like that.
Okay, okay, okay. There's so many resources on the online platform. There's so many platforms as well. I've discovered there's so many platforms. So many. You have the maths platform, you have the English, you have the phonics, you have so many platforms. And I feel that it becomes quite challenging. Another thing is, did you just use one platform?
No, we have an LMS to put their work into
Mhm.
so that they can go to it. But I used multiple platforms, so we'd use things like Google Docs, we'd use online things like like multiplication.com, we'd use Quizlet, Kahoot, all kinds of things depending on the class.
Okay, okay. So who told you about those platforms? Where did you get this platform from? Other educators, right?
Yeah, so some I've used in other classes before or at other schools, and
Okay.
then some I just got from teachers, like teacher friends, or just asking other teachers.
Mm-hmm. Yes, well, I discovered that initially I thought was just Zoom and, Google Classroom, but then I discovered that there's so many platforms. It becomes confusing. So didn't you feel that the different platforms were confusing for you, confusing for the students, and confusing for the parents? Didn't you find that confusing?
I didn't find it confusing. I mean, I think I have kind of an advantage as a computer science teacher,
Oh,
so I'm pretty
yes.
used to most of it. But sometimes, yeah, it would be difficult for the students to have to, keep opening up different tabs, like, send it in the
Mm,
chat and then got to make sure everybody has it open. Some things that need accounts are also difficult. Everyone has to
mm,
sign up. Um,
mm,
the parents, same kind of similar thing. Some parents either it was pretty easy for them, but a lot of them also had similar confusion, like, oh, do I have to make an account for this? Like, am I on the right page? Various questions.
mm, 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 mm. Do you think that it is better just using one platform and then having all of this feed into one platform? You are a computer scientist.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be better if there was one platform that could do everything, but I've noticed it's usually pretty hard, like even with Google Classroom, to get every single thing you need on there. So,
Okay,
um,
okay.
yeah.
Okay, so it means that the student would have, because you use different platforms, the student had different passwords to go into those platforms, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Wow, I find that's really challenging. It's confusing my head as an educator because you'll say, okay, you need a new password. So which means the student always have to be remembering or they need to have a book that have all this password. How was that? Did the student actually engage in that? Well, I said to you, Miss, I've lost my password. What was that like?
Yeah, usually when they have to make accounts, I tell them to write it down right away. But yeah, you do always run into those situations where they've forgotten it and they have to reset it. I try to just have them share their screen
Mm.
during the best time and then walk them through it. But yeah, it can be challenging at times with the younger kids specifically, because most of the older kids are okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, that's challenging because I know, in terms of having different platforms, which means a different password, a different setup, and every time they say, "Oh, Miss, I don't know where I put it," but I told you to put it in a book. Or Miss, I thought I had it in that book. So it's a constant. I find it wasting a lot of time
Yeah.
using this other platform. It wastes a lot of time because the time they lose it, they need to, they say, you lose password, then you sign up for it, it goes into your email. It's like all of that. The lesson finished.
Yeah, that definitely is an issue and definitely something that's harder online. It's
Yeah,
uh yeah, it
yeah,
can be wasteful.
yeah, exactly, exactly. Okay. When are you starting back to school?
We actually started last week.
Oh, you're one of them that started last week. So when you started back onto the online platform?
Yeah.
Okay, okay. I'm not going to ask you anything about that now because I'm coming back to you. So, using your new skill. So you're using your new skill onto this second phase, isn't it? Whoa, that's beautiful. Okay. So how long are you guys going to be on this platform for?
We're not sure. The guidelines are saying that as soon as a county is on the safe list for, I believe it's like 14 to 21 days, then we can evaluate going back or going hybrid. But until that happens, we have to stay online.
Okay. Okay. Wow. 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 So I probably you're one of these people I need to come back to quick to find out what's going on there. Okay. So can I have 3 tips that you would give to anybody who is going on the online platform now for the first time?
For the first time, I think one of the biggest things is, yeah, making sure to check in on each student. So making everyone share their screen sometime, just so you know they're present. Um, Probably doing more class discussions. So that's like a way you can just make sure everyone's participating, because you know a lot of times in the beginning you'll just have kids that they don't want to say anything at all, or you're not really sure if they're paying attention. If they don't feel comfortable talking, maybe they can say it in the chat too, just so they're participating, but maybe if they're camera shy or you can't see them. And then I think, yeah, talking to other teachers is definitely the biggest thing. Like, even if you have to go online to a group, just ask other teachers, like, what are the best platforms for whatever type of lessons? Because I do think you could end up spending like hours and weeks on end just like Googling and searching and looking on YouTube. I know I definitely went through that. So if somebody else has already done the work for you, definitely try to take advantage of that.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Another thing, how did you check in terms of attendance? What did how you know what how did you check your attendance in terms of who was there, who what did you do?
Yeah, I just looked at the Zoom, and then, yeah, just had everyone type in their name, or we would just ask, or I would just ask them out loud, like, just their names, and just to say here.
Okay, so you had a physical you took a physical register.
Yeah, I just write it on my notepad.
Okay, okay. So what happened if a student did not turn up and well, the student have access, not that they didn't have a camera or they didn't, not camera, not say they didn't have a phone, they had access to coming online. So when you realize that, okay, this student should be there, the student haven't attended for 3 weeks, what did you do?
Yeah, we just contact the parents, so we send an
Okay.
email with the list of missing students, and then our admin reach out to the parents.
Okay, okay. So the admin did it. You didn't have to do it yourself. The admin did it.
Yeah, the admin did.
Okay, okay, okay. Well, because I was saying to you, where did you get the time? Because the fact that you teach it from 8:30 until 5 o'clock, any little short time you had, that's for you to try to recuperate because you have another lesson in 10 minutes time. That's it. I'm just listening to you and it's making me feel tired. And this is what you're doing now as you come back onto the new platform as well.
Yeah. Right now, I'm not teaching as long. I'm teaching until around 3:30, but it'll probably go back to 5:30
Oh,
as I
brilliant.
get new classes.
Okay, okay. So now you're teaching until 3:15. So which means you have from 3:15, after that, do you have office, do you call that office hours then? Do you have after that as office hours or it's not after office hours? What is it?
Yeah, I guess you could call them office hours, so we can plan lessons, or we can have meetings with the students or parents.
Okay, 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 okay. Right. What is your opinion in terms of something they've said? It's in the press and it's very much in America because I've actually took that from an online platform which have a lot of American educators on, and it's actually now in Britain as well on the newspaper, saying that educators are lazy. They don't want to go back to the physical classroom. They don't care about the student, things like that. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, as an educator, I think that's kind of like an unfair statement. I think a lot of teachers are spending a lot more time prepping for their lessons. I think people are kind of underestimating how much time it takes to convert physical lessons into computerized lessons, especially if you're not familiar with how to do that already. So I think a lot of teachers are actually spending a lot more time prepping and learning other skills. And I think, at least where I am, I know my county is very like rapidly increasing in COVID cases. So I definitely think it is a hazard to go back. So I do think teachers are worried. I wouldn't say they're being lazy. I think they are just worried for not just themselves, but for the students as well.
Mhm. I totally agree with that. And as I keep saying on the platform every day, that educators are human beings. The same fears everybody have regarding going back into work. We are also fearful going back to work, and our job is very different from all the jobs out there, because there is no way that anybody have one, 30 or 50 or whatever children in their care at the same time. And when you're actually teaching in, especially in university, that you're teaching in an auditorium, there's sometimes you might have 100 students you're lecturing to, and they're all in the same environment. There are no jobs I could think about where you have all of that except in education. Whereas a doctor would see one patient at a time, a nurse would see one person at a time, but educators, we are seeing multitudes of students at a time. And you and I are fortunate because we are not teaching the younger students. I've had educators who are teaching from children 3 years old, and we know 3 years old, some of them don't even know how to wipe their noses. So educators are constantly wiping noses. They're constantly supervising them in the toilet. And it's like all of that. And then you also have some children that when they see this teacher, they automatically want to run and hug. And educators constantly have to be reminding them, sorry, you cannot hug. All of that. The student, could you imagine telling a 3-year-old and trying to explain to a 3-year-old why they cannot hug this teacher? The student feel rejected. So these
Right.
are some of the things that, as much as online is not the best option, but the fact that the virus is still on the increase, I do feel that online is a viable option, because it's better than going into the physical classroom that we are exposed to all the students' viruses. And as we also know that on normal condition, when they didn't have the virus, when you go to school, you come back, you're always sick because them children bring everything.
Okay, exactly.
Exactly. So those are things people need to be aware of when they're ready to criticize educators. First of all, we are human beings. We are parents. We are daughters. We are sons. We are children. We are all of that. We are like everybody else. The only difference is we are educators who impact knowledge onto people. But the first thing we are is human beings with feelings and emotions. So we have the emotions, the anxiety like everybody else. So you guys all they need to remember that, because people seem to have in their head that educators are superheroes. The minute we take on the attachment and the label as superheroes, they begin to treat us as superheroes, and they begin to feel that we have no feelings. We as the cartoon characters, we are superheroes. So educators, I keep on saying in every show, stop taking on the labels of superheroes. You are not superheroes. Once you start taking it on, people start believing that you are indeed superhero, and they treat you like a superhero, forgetting you are a human being first. So remember, we are not mourning, we're just trying to put the record straight. Is there anything you want to say to us before I close up? Any thoughts, any comments?
Um, I guess, yeah, like you just said, I just think it's important for people to remember that it is quite a dangerous scenario to be around just that many people at once. And also, I think people need to think about the ramifications. If teachers do get sick, it's going to put, their child's education on hold. It's hard to find, a substitute who can take all your classes, someone who knows your students, things like that. So it could end up being even worse if we go back too early. And we've seen, at least in America, a lot of situations like that already happening where now schools have to close back down. And I think it's just important to put safety first in this case. But yeah, thank you so
Yeah,
much for having me.
yeah. Thank you. That actually sum it up, actually. There's nothing else for me to say because you've actually summed it up. Because when we actually go back and in the physical classroom, although the virus is still high, it means that these children are coming in with these viruses and educators are likely to get it. And nobody's going to want to go into a school to cover when they know that someone was sick or been, the class have been closed, etc. for those reasons. So I totally support, online teaching, although, and we all know as educators, it is not the best option. We all would rather go to the physical classroom because we're able to connect better with our students. And as everybody knows, connection is very, very important because we communicate with our students, we connect with our students, and it's easier because you can see what they're doing than the online. So we all prefer the physical classroom. However, where that is not possible and the virus is on the increase, we have to go onto the online platform for our safety, and as Rachel clearly reminds us, and for your child's safety. So that's the thing you guys need to remember. Thank you very, very much, Rachel, for coming online. I do appreciate it. I appreciate you sharing your experiences with us so that we realize that what the issues are, and whatever country we are in, we all have very similar experiences. We are dealing with children, and with children come a lot of baggages. And in order for us to do well, people need to remember that we may not be in the physical classroom. We might have to teach your child on the online platform. That's for us to do well in order to educate your child, because it is better than going on to the physical classroom and everybody's sick. It would take us a step backward. So those are things people need to be aware of instead of passing judgment that educators don't care about the classes. I keep on saying to everybody, the reason why we became educators, not for the pay. Education does not pay. It doesn't give us the Bentley, which you might see some educators are turning up in. They didn't get that through teaching. They got that through someone buying it for them or they have another job. Education does not pay us. We do it because we love it. We do it because we have a passion. We do it because we feel that we're on a mission. We do it because we feel that we have something to give someone else's child, not because of the payment. So anybody say they're in education because of the pay, they're lying to you, because education doesn't pay. There's so many jobs out there that pay much better. And I'm sure Rachel would agree with me on that one.
Yeah, definitely.
Exactly. So thank you, everybody. Take care. Good night, good evening, good morning, wherever you are. Please like, share, and comment. And whatever comment you have in the, whatever comment you put, we are going to respond to it when we actually see it. I'll be doing another show tomorrow looking at the psychological, emotional, and the trauma that people are experiencing within the education sector, and various tips from psychologists and counselors, how as educators we're able to deal with that. Because it is heavy, because we are going back onto the online platform and the students still have packages, and we need to deal with that. And parents, I keep on urging you to speak to your child. Listen to what is not being said. Observe the behavior pattern. See how the behavior is changing. However the behavior change, remember, it's nothing to do with the behavior, it's what they have been experiencing. Because remember, we are all experiencing a new normal, and we're going through things that we've never had before. So your child might be behaving erratic, might be rude, etc. But you need to talk to that child, find out what the underlying factors are. It is so important. Thank you, everybody. Have a fantastic evening. Take care. Be blessed, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye-bye.